Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here. Here we go. This is our first meeting, of course, of the 2022 to 2026 council. I am going to start off with some opening words. This hybrid meeting is being held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with section 238 subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. The meeting will also be broadcast on Rogers TV. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the agendas, meetings, and minutes page of the city's website. Councillors attending virtually will be raising their hands in view of their webcam when moving a motion, requesting to speak, and when a vote is being taken. If a member of council is disconnected or having technical difficulties, we will take a recess in order to attempt to rectify the issue. If technical difficulties exist that prevent the meeting from continuing, the meeting will be adjourned and reconvene at a later time. If a councillor attending virtually needs to leave the meeting at any time, they are requested to inform the clerk. And this evening, I'll be calling upon Connie Lauder to read the resolutions. Councillor Lauder? Oh. Sorry, there we go. My first mistake. That's what you get for reading a piece of paper solely. Okay, first off, we're going to start. There is no, or are there any disclosures of conflict of interest? Seeing none. Disclosure of new business, matters arising from the minutes, and now the minutes. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Leatherborough, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on November the 3rd, 2022, and the minutes of the inaugural meeting of Woodstock City Council held on November the 15th, 2022 be adopted.
Any discussion? All those in favor? None against? Carried. Thank you. Additions to the agenda. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Schadenberg, that the following items be added to the agenda. Department report item 14D1 2023 annual bedding plants order.
Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. None opposed. Thank you. There are no presentations this evening. No delegations, no consideration of planning reports. We do have consideration of correspondence. Looking for someone to make that motion. Councillor Tate. Seconded by Councillor Schanberg. Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council authorize the Woodstock Public Library Board to move funds from the 2022 year-end surplus into the library salaries reserve account.
Any questions or discussions? Seeing none, I'll ask for the motion. All those in favor? Carried. None opposed. Thank you. Up next, of course, we do have the staff presentation. I'm going to call upon David Creary, the Chief Administrative Officer, and Diane Campbell, Director of Administrative Services, Capital Budget Presentation. Floor is yours, David. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Somebody's taking care of me. The presentation's working its own. Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. On behalf of your administration, we are pleased to present City Council with the proposed 2023 capital budget and the 2024 to 2027 capital forecast plan. I'll provide a high-level overview of the proposed spending, and Mrs. Campbell will provide an overview on budget financing. While the budget before you covers 5 years, it is important to remember that Council will only approve projects that are included in 2023. There is a Council meeting scheduled for Tuesday, November 22nd to review the budget in detail, and a second date on November 24th if needed. Budget meetings are always open to the public, and there's typically no reason to arrive early to secure a seat. The meeting will also be live streamed for those who prefer to watch from the comfort of home. Council is scheduled to consider approval of the budget along with any amendments at their meeting of December 15th. The budget can now be accessed on the city website for anyone who chooses to look. Okay. I'll use this going forward. Okay, so diving into the proposed budget. The 2023 capital program in total, which means including sewer and water projects that are funded by County of Oxford user fees, is approximately 31.6 million, which compares with 25.7 million from last year, or an increase of 5.9 million year over year. The 2023 capital program of own purpose spending, so it's everything other than county sewer and water funded projects, totals about 27.475 million, comparing with about 22.5 million for an increase of about 4.9 million year over year, which is roughly the price tag of a Southgate Center renovation and expansion, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. You can see in the 2024 to 2027 capital forecast plan, there are significant spending pressures in these forecast years. Own purpose spending of almost $200 million over 4 years represents a capital program, roughly $50 million a year. But underlying this, there are two major projects that make up approximately $75 million of this spending alone. The first is the construction of a new double pad arena to replace Civic Center Arena, which comes with an estimated cost of $24 million. The second is industrial land servicing, and there's an estimated cost in the forecast years of about $51 million. Now, it is planned that the costs associated with industrial land servicing will be financed from land sales, not from the taxpayer. And in fact, there are some industrial land servicing projects that we're deferring this year because there isn't sufficient funds. We need to generate those funds from land sales before we can proceed. So each of these projects in the forecast years will need to be carefully examined to ensure that our financial security is not compromised. Projects may be modified, they may be moved, or alternative financing may be proposed. Okay, now here's a characterization of the capital spending for 2023. Each year, we estimate the proportion of the budget allocated to keep our existing assets in a state of good repair in comparison to spending on new assets. There should be an overall bias towards state of good repair spending, which is evident in this year's budget, with 70% being applied to keeping what we own in good repair versus investing in new assets. Moving into the roads projects. First of all, road resurfacing is essentially what's known as a shave and pave. This type of work, which is superficial, can only be done when the underground infrastructure and the road base are in good condition. A road resurfacing prolongs the life of the road and is a good investment. Road reconstruction, on the other hand, is a road that cannot be rehabilitated through road resurfacing. It is a complete rebuild of the road, and it typically includes repairs or replacements to the underground sewers, water mains, along with services and laterals. Now, surface asphalt is associated only with road reconstruction. It's the final lift of asphalt on roads that have been completely reconstructed. So given that road resurfacing can prolong the life of a road, it is a good investment to reduce the number of roads that fall into that road reconstruction category that is much more expensive. Because of this, a goal of reaching $2 million annual spending on road resurfacing was established in 2015, and City Council approved 2 reserve allocations of $200,000, resulting in annual sustainable funding of $400,000 per year for road resurfacing. We have several more steps ahead of us to reach that $2 million figure, which, by the way, is a figure that has not been adjusted for inflation. The other funding sources that we use for road resurfacing includes the federal gas tax funding and the OSIF funding, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund. So City Council applied a revenue fund budget surplus allocation in 2022 to bump road spending on a one-time basis, which is the reason why we're showing a decline in spending between 2023 and 2022 of approximately $200,000. So inflation has impacted costs in many areas, and roads is one of these. The $595,000 year-over-year increase in road reconstruction spending does not represent an increase in the amount of work completed, but more accurately reveals the inflationary effects on this budget. So roads on deck for this year: Wellington from Devonshire to Ingersoll Ave, Dundas from Oxford to Van Ave, Sprucedale from Springbank to Abbott, Russell from Albert to Parkinson, and Quinton Place. Moving into the building projects, by far the biggest project is the Southgate Center expansion and renovation. Total budget of $6.81 million, which includes $1 million being raised by Southgate Center itself. Now, Southgate Center timed their project with the retirement of the 20-year funding commitment that the city had with the Woodstock General Hospital, under the premise that the annual debt cost could be absorbed in part by these funds. This project is currently being designed. The architectural services have been retained, and the project is beginning the design phase, but it awaits council approval for final budget before it can proceed. We have also on deck for this year is renovation to the west end of the Market Building for a City Hall annex to address overcrowding in City Hall. This will include the installation of an elevator to make full use of the second floor of that building for the Human Resources Office. The lower level is proposed to include a relocated small business enterprise center, along with a relocated BIA office, along with our downtown bylaw enforcement officer. The small business enterprise center property on Dundas Street would become surplus to the city's needs if this is completed. The gallery fourth floor renovation project is contingent on funding through the Green and Inclusive Community Building Fund. There are expansions both at Public Works and the Woodstock Police Building that are being planned for future years. There's a number of large projects in the forecast years, building related projects. The largest, I guess, being an actual re-roofing project of the community complex. Oh, sorry, there was City Hall expansion, which remains to be seen how long we can defer that expansion, depending on how many staff we can fit in the Market Center West End. Moving into the Parks and Recreation projects. In 2023, a new cricket field is being proposed at Cowan Fields. A continuation of the revitalization of Homer Brown Park on Alice Street is being proposed. A continuation of the Cowan Fields Playground, a sewer and water servicing project to bring sewer and water services to the north shore of Piddock. Now, there are a variety of other projects, both in 2023 and in the forecast years, that relate to a decision of council that was made in December of 2019, where council established a preference to replace Lions Pool with a new outdoor pool beside Southside Pool, and to replace the Southside wading pool with a new splash pad, and directed staff to include these projects in the capital budget. So what you have here in 2023, firstly, is that splash pad proposed in Southside Park to replace the wading pool behind Southside. The splash pad would be no user fee, which there is a user fee associated with the wading pool now. There would be no standing water, unlike the standing water that is in the wading pool. Therefore, there's no staffing requirements. It would also free up the real estate for the eventual expansion associated with the Southside Aquatic Center for outdoor pool. So we also have the outdoor pool design included in 2023. Council will want to pay attention to the Golf Hall renovation project because this is a proposed change to the function of Golf Hall in some respects, in that it has historically been a community and event space. And while that will continue, it will be redeveloped, renovated into a more active space for recreation purposes. So it will be programmed for things like pickleball. So it will be more recreation-based activity to bring more use to that facility. And the Cowan Sportsplex facility redevelopment is trying to capture some unused crush space in a way that they can convert it into programmable space. So moving forward into the Parks and Rec forecast years, you can see there are more investments in aquatics in the forecast years. Southside Pool change room expansion, new outdoor pool, examples. There are a number of other larger projects, Piddock North Shore washrooms, which will make use of the sewer and water services that are proposed to be brought to those lands this year. Some new parks being developed in currently developing plans of subdivision, ball diamonds, a fairly expensive indoor turf replacement at the Cowan Park Sportsplex. But I guess paling in comparison is the new Twin Pad Arena at 24 million to all of those projects to replace Civic Center. Looking at industrial land development in the forecast years, 3.3 million for intersection improvements at Petullo and Highway 59. So this is the realignment of Petullo to move the intersection with Highway 59 further south, closing the current intersection down. This is a requirement of the Ministry of Transportation due to the proximity of that intersection to the ramp terminals with Highway 401. This is a requirement in order to continue developing lands down Petullo Avenue for future industrial uses. There is also the $51 million Northeast Industrial Park. And again, financing for that is proposed to come from land sales. We estimate that we need to yield approximately $20 million of land sales from our Petullo Avenue industrial park in order to seed sufficient investment in the Northeast Industrial Park to get to a point where we can start selling land and continue on financing the balance of that cost. And a future road through the Woodall Farm is also proposed to make use of the vacant land that we have in the north. Forecast years, downtown revitalization. City Council approved the Streetscape Master Plan and recently, and directed staff to include the costs in the capital program. And so we have done so, starting in 2024 and moving through 2027. This is certainly something that we should endeavor to try and find grant funding for. We were successful with grant funding for the last Dundas Street reconstruction, which was 20 some years ago now. It remains to be seen whether or not a funding program will emerge that this could qualify for, but we can only hold out hope. Fire apparatus replacements, we've got some fairly significant ones. 2023, $1 million for engine 1, and replace ladder 1 in 2027, $2 million. And with that, I will turn it over to Mrs. Campbell.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. As Mr. Curry mentioned, I'll be providing some additional details on the financing of the 2023 capital budget. But before I get into the financing, I just want to draw Council's attention to the early pages of the preliminary capital budget document that's specifically related to the asset management plan and capital budgeting. We have included some information here in the form of a report card on the 3 core asset segments from the most recent asset management plan, which was approved by Council in June of 2022. The electronic version of the information that will be posted does include links directly to the AMP, as well as some of the other plans and studies that the city has used to support the AMP. While we're not going to address the AMP specifically during this presentation, since it was presented earlier in the year to Council, we do encourage all members of Council to review the documents. And as indicated in the report cards, while the core assets are all currently reporting as good, the current funding levels are not sufficient to maintain that grade. So having said that, we'll move right into the financing of the capital budget. Got a few general comments with respect to that before I get going. We are continuing to experience some supply chain issues, as well as periodic difficulties finding contractors, both of which are still attributed to the COVID pandemic. But obviously the bigger story during 2022 is related to the inflation and the price increases, which has resulted in reduced buying power for the city. And I may end up reiterating some of what Mr. Curry has said previously, but I think it's important to push the points home. There are a number of 2022 capital projects which couldn't be completed within the original budgets, which resulted in a number of recent council reports requesting additional financing, again, just because of the increased pricing. And in some other cases, we had projects that have been delayed pending additional requests in the 2023 budget. We were able in 2021 to use some of the COVID relief funding that we received to mitigate revenue losses in the operating budget. And as a result of that, we did get a reasonable surplus in 2021, which we were able to contribute to the 2022 capital program. And we also had a small allocation that we made to the municipal building reserve to improve its financial position. With respect to the specifics of the overall 2023 capital budget, we are proposing total expenditures of just over $31.6 million, with the year-over-year increase of a little less than $6 million. So to begin with the actual components of the financing, the first item, capital contribution from the revenue fund budget at $3.85 million. We will commonly refer to this funding source as capital out of revenue. As a financing source, it represents the amount that we raise in the revenue fund budget that's directly contributed to the capital program. We use a formula to calculate this contribution, which includes a base funding amount, which is increased by the annual assessment growth, We add the allocation of the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, which is being decreased each year and is currently less than $25,000, and a portion of the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Commission funding from the previous year. For the past few years, the OLG portion of this source was reduced as a result of COVID-related closures at the slot facility. So the 2022 receipts are improving. We're still anticipating a slight shortfall, maybe 15% as compared to pre-pandemic receipts. As a result of the completion of our 20-year commitment to the Woodstock General Hospital, there will likely be a change proposed for the funding allocation for the slots in 2023, and a recommendation will likely come before council in conjunction with the revenue fund budget. The second source is revenue reserves and reserve funds, and that's just over $11.5 million. And I think to start, just for the benefit of the new councillors and as a refresher for the returning councillors, we'll do a little quick reserve fund 101. The reserves and reserve funds that can be established in a few ways. So discretionary reserves and reserve funds can be established by municipal councils for specific purposes. Although there is some flexibility in their use, because they've been set up with specific criteria in mind, they're typically only used to fund projects that meet the original criteria of the fund. Reserve funds can also be established as a requirement of provincial legislation or contractual agreements, and these funds are considered obligatory, and they can only be used for their intended purpose. So an example of that would be a development charges fund, or certain grants require that we set aside the money in their own bank account. Reserves we more often use within the operating budget, although we do use reserves for various types of equipment replacement, municipal building repairs, for ongoing financing of some of our parks and open space projects, and for asphalt resurfacing. The source of reserve monies can be a number of places. We use our budget surplus, we use property tax levies, and we also use council approved carryovers to provide a few examples. The carryover report will be coming forward at the next council meeting, so you'll get an idea of how we handle the projects that aren't quite finished in a year that we want to move into the next year without having to do a total rebudget. So reserve and reserve funds, they're a tool that we use for long-term financial sustainability. We set the money aside for capital projects as well as unavoidable events, reducing the need for long-term borrowing or sudden tax increases. Benefits of establishing reserve and reserve funds include having funds available for special purpose one-time funding, providing municipalities with flexibility in terms of fluctuating cash flows, and also allowing municipalities to save and plan ahead for repairs and upgrades. Well, these are a few ways that we can use reserve and reserve funds as a strategic management tool. It's not always as easy to follow through as we'd like it to be. And a case in point is the asphalt resurfacing reserve contribution, which we've been working to increase since 2015, and we've only got it partway there. In any budget year, we will see fluctuations in the amount of reserve and reserve fund dollars utilized to finance the program. And this is a result of the capital project and the reserve fund needing to match in order to use that funding. As such, the use of reserve and reserve fund in any given year is tied to the nature of the proposed project and may fluctuate. Included in the preliminary capital budget booklet on page 18, which is not numbered, but before page 19, is a listing of the commonly used reserves and reserve funds, as well as projected balances over the next 5 years. The numbers are conservative and they're preliminary in nature, as the 2022 capital financing and carryovers have not yet been completed. 2023 is fully funded based on the preliminary estimates. However, there's certainly evidence of shortfalls occurring in the forecast years for several of the funds, and that will need to be addressed in those years. Final year-end reserve and reserve fund balances will be presented to council probably in March or April of next year. With respect to the debt, we're proposing financing of just over $8 million, and I'll speak to that in a little more detail on my next slide. We're anticipating $4.1 million from the county through the water and sewer rates in order to fund some various water main and sanitary sewer replacements. And our grants just under $4.1 million. The the main grant or the largest grant was formerly the federal gas tax grant. It's actually now called the Canada Community Building Fund. We also get a dedicated gas tax for public transportation, the OSIF fund. And we've got a couple other grants listed in the program this year. One is the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program and the Green and Inclusive Community Building Program. So we typically receive the notification of the dedicated gas tax allocation early in the year, and we're expecting the OSIF allocation in the next couple of weeks. The only one that we have definite numbers on is the federal gas tax, which they announced that several years at a time. And so we do have the 2023 number properly reflected as promised in the grant forecast. I also like to draw your attention to the fact that the dedicated gas tax allocation is showing a shortfall beginning in 2025. That's the one that we dedicate to transit projects. The ISIP grant was application based a couple of years ago, and it's the final portion of the transit expansion project. And then lastly, the Green and Inclusive Community Building Grant that's the one for the completion of the fourth floor of the art gallery. The application is submitted. We're anticipating a decision by year end. If we are not successful, this project won't move forward at this time. So with respect to the debt, currently we have estimated outstanding debt and principal and interest at the end of the year of 16.9 million, principal only of 14.4 million. As I said, we're proposing to add $8 million to that in 2023. There's several projects included in the 2023 year that will require some debt financing. One is an annual contribution or an annual issue that we do of $900,000 for road resurfacing. The large one, as mentioned, is Southgate Center at $5.3 million. This project is also identified in our development charges background study, and that would allow us to use some development charges money to pay for a portion of the debt repayment should this project move forward. Also in the 23 program, as was previously mentioned, there's a new splash pad and a renovation of the west end of the market center to provide some additional space for City Hall staff. Moving forward into the 4-year forecast, we're looking at almost $49 million of debt. There's a number of large projects, and the only way that we're going to be able to go forward with those is to venture them likely over 20 years. Includes the Twin Pad Arena, the outdoor pool, City Hall expansion, and the downtown revitalization project. The annual debt repayment limit for this city is just over $15.5 million, and it's set by the province. We're well within our limit, and even adding all of these projects, we would continue to stay within our limit. The impact, though, of new debt is felt when we do the operating budget by way of increased repayments of principal and interest. Since the last capital budget deliberations, Bank of Canada has raised interest rates 6 times. There's a final announcement still to come in December of this year. The result so far has been a 3.5% increase since January of 2022. The interest rates used in the budget projections are used 4.39 and 4.73, and that compares to the actuals last year of 2.42 and 2.91, and those are over 10 and 20 years. And actually just today learned that our road debentures will be issued at 4.24 for 2022. So unfortunately, while the picture was more rosy last year with respect to the issuing of debt and the interest rates, these hikes are obviously going to have an impact moving forward with the capital program. And with that, I thank you. And I guess if there's any questions, we can answer those, or we'll defer to next Tuesday.
I would ask Juan if there's any questions of council. Obviously, we're going to go into a lot more detail on Tuesday. I hope you all have that memorized now, right? No? Councillor Schattenberg.
Maybe just a question of clarification for our CIO from the mayor through Mr. Curry. I noticed that in the expense for building the addition to Southgate Center, it was noticed that Southgate Center would be contributing 1.0 million to it. I thought their goal was 1.5 million for their share, or is that more of a long-term thing for them?
Your worship, through to Councillor Schattenberg, I believe that's their own internal fundraising, but the commitment to council, I believe, was 1 million. think the extra 500,000 would be towards chattels, furnishings, that kind of thing associated with the project. But I believe the council expectation was the 1 million.
Thanks.
Any other preliminary questions from council? Okay, there are no motions on this tonight, so thank you very much. We will, of course, deal with this much further on Tuesday. I do recommend everybody to come. There's always lots of seats available. As you can tell, it's very exciting. But we are talking about a lot of big dollar amounts, so those interested, please come. Okay, moving along. We do not have any mayor's reports tonight or councillor reports. Now we do have some department reports, administrative services. For statement of revenue and expenditures and statement of capital expenditures for the period ending October 31st, 2022. I need someone to move. Councillor Schattenberg, seconded by Councillor Tate. Go ahead, Councillor Schattenberg.
The Woodstock City Council received the statement of revenue and expenditure and the statement of capital expenditures for the period ending October 31st, 2022 as information.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. All in favor. Moving along to no engineering reports or cultural services reports or Parks and Rec tonight. We do have one for Parks and Rec. My apologies. No offense. 2023 annual bedding plants order. Ask for someone to move that. Councillor Lauder, seconded by Councillor Leatherborough.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Leatherborough, that the Woodstock City Council approves the funding of $33,910 plus HST in the 2023 budget for payment up for the supply of floral materials from Floral Express Inc.
Are there any discussions or questions? Councillor Schattenberg?
Yeah, from the chair through to Chris Kern from the Parks Department here this evening. I guess my best question is to give us an idea as to where the 33,910 gets spent between the parks and traffic triangles and whatnot.
Through your worship to the councillor's question, our floral budget this is basically the bedding plants for our main tourism areas for town, which would be Southside Park, Van Ave, the museum, and areas like that. So it's really just this is the status quo kind of quantity of plants. It's just with the cost of inflation and that, but it'll all fit within our budget. So,
Councillor Tate?
Yeah, just a comment through the chair. Just thank you again to the staff. The parks were phenomenal this year. I mean, they always are, but you do such a fantastic job and everybody comments on our city, how we have the nicest parks. So thank you.
I'll just add a little bit to that. I had the pleasure, actually, my wife and I had the pleasure of sitting with a couple that was here from Maine visiting us, want to go to our museum, but they love coming in the summer because how beautiful the city of Woodstock is. So to the staff, especially considering the staffing issues and everything else we've had lately, just well done. Well done. So thank you. Councillor Wheaton?
Just a quick question through the chair to the Recreation Department. Would these all be annuals or would there be any annuals, the perennials included in this purchase? Are they annuals only?
through your worship, this is strictly annuals.
Any other questions? Councillor Lauder?
It's just a comment. Not only are the flower beds wonderful, but it's the ball diamonds where they're afraid to even walk on them. They're so well kept. So thanks for all the work that you do on those also.
Any other discussion or questions? All right, seeing none. All those in favor with the motion on the floor? Carried. No objections. Thank you. Nothing from economic development tonight or clerks. Well, we have a big one. 2026 to 2022 to 2026 term of council meeting times. We'll be looking for a motion for the term first of the acting mayor. But term of office first. Yes, it is. Sorry. My apologies, bear with us. The term of office for acting mayor? No. Oh, yeah, it's not here at all. Yeah. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. It's actually not on here. Yeah, but nothing, there's no motion. Is that it? Okay, thank you. Come on, guys, you really have to throw that at me first day? That is not fair. All right, not my first mistake, definitely won't be the last, but we'll figure it out. So thank you for catching that to the clerk. All right, we do need the recommendation of the Woodstock City Council approve one of the options. So I am looking for a motion on the floor to present one of the options. Councillor Schattenberg.
Yeah, from the motion therefore from 14F number 1 to accept option number 1, which would be to schedule all regular council meetings at 7 PM.
All right, would I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Leatherborough? Discussion.
To the chair.
Councillor Wismer Van Meer?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm new to this too.
Yeah, it's okay. No worries.
I would like to see a mix of the two myself. I think it opens up availability to folks within our community. Having been a person that worked different shifts than the average folk at one point, the late meetings every month, 2 times a month, doesn't open up and is not as inclusive as I think a balance of a daytime and an evening meeting, allowing folks to have the availability to both to be present for our meetings.
Councillor Tate.
Through the chair, I would agree with Councillor Van Meer Wismer. Wismer Van Meer. Just having a short conversation, because she worked in media, I understand what she's saying. She said we may get more media coverage if we have one through the day and then one at night, which is what we do at county. We may get, I know my other argument was at nighttime because it's better for the public, but talking to somebody in the media, they said they can make themselves available during the day, but I think what we want is as much public input as possible and coverage, which we don't seem to get. So I agree with Councillor's comments. So I'm going to vote against Councillor Schattenberg's motion.
Is there any other discussion? Councillor Lauder?
I too will vote against the 7 o'clock time. I would actually prefer the afternoon, but I'm not working, so I have time. But I agree that, and having sat on county council and seeing how they had the 2 different times, that seemed to really work. And I think that I would agree with the 7 o'clock and the 1:30.
Councillor Wheaton?
Could I be enlightened into whether there is a staffing preference or impact on having all evening meetings or having the hybrid of afternoon, evening?
Sorry, would the CEO like to speak to that?
Your worship, through to Councillor Wheaton. The staff are here to serve. So, yeah, essentially, the council should be concerned with your own schedules as well as the public who need access to the council for planning decisions or for delegations. It's their time that you should give consideration to, with all due respect.
Our first real debate. Any other discussion? No, seeing none, then we'll call for the vote and address it from there. All those in favor of the current motion on the floor by Councillor Schadenberg for option 1? 2? All those opposed? Okay, that is defeated. Looking for another motion then. Councillor Lauder,
I'll move that Woodstock City Council approves option 2 with respect to the regular council meeting times, which that is the, no, that's not, that's the 1:30. That's the one I thought was nice. The option 3.
okay,
Option 3.
so option 3 would be 1 in the evening, 1 during the day, just for everybody's clarification. Okay, do I have a seconder on that motion? Councillor Wismer Van Meer. I did it. Okay, any discussion? Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, thanks a lot to the chair, to, I guess, our clerk. She had a nice explanation for option number 3 as to how she would prefer to see it go based on the planning meetings that take place as well on Mondays before Thursday night meetings once a month.
Would you like, okay, the clerk would like to speak to that?
So thank your worship. Through to the councillor's question, for the viewing public's information, the option outlined in the report would suggest if we had 2 meetings a month, that the first meeting of the month would be at 1:30, but the second would be at 7 PM because it falls during the same week as our planning meeting. And our planning meetings are at 7 PM. So for consistency, we would recommend that the second meeting be the late one, as well as January, July, August, and December when we meet once. We also have the one planning meeting as well in the evening. So we would suggest that that meeting be at night as well. Thank you.
Okay, does that go along with your motion as well? Councillor Lauder, just to confirm?
Yes.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed, passes. So we now have, for the general public, we'll be meeting in the first meeting, 1:30 in the afternoon, first Thursday of every month. And of course, the third Thursday of the month, we'll meet in the evenings at 7 PM. Mark your calendars. I expect you here. Thank you. All right, well done, everyone. Thank you for that. All right, so now we can go along for the acting mayor appointment. I do chair this portion of the meeting, and I'm gonna look for a motion. Sorry. I'm gonna be looking for a motion for that. Councillor Tate?
For the term, right? Yep.
Yes, it is for the term.
Right, through the chair, I'll make the motion that the term of office for the acting mayor. Where is it? From November 17th, 2022 through to November 4th, oh, sorry, no. January 11th, 2024, sorry. And further.
Do you mind continuing?
And further that Woodstock City Council shall select an acting mayor in the term of office at the regular meeting of council held on July 11th, 2024.
Don't believe I had a seconder on that motion, did I?
Nope.
Councillor Wheaton seconds that. Okay, discussion? Councillor Tate.
Yeah, just for the public, where we're just for electing for one year, so we will re-elect every year for 4 years.
Okay, no more questions? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Carried. None opposed. All right, so we do have now 1 year commitments for the acting mayor. Now I will pass this over to the city clerk. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship. So we will now proceed with the election of acting mayor, as you mentioned. Each member of council is entitled to one vote, and CAO David Creary will draw a name from a ballot box in the event of a tie. So I will now accept nominations in writing, duly moved and seconded for the position of acting mayor. So the following councillors have been nominated: Councillor Lauder and Councillor Wheaton. Councillor Lauder, are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Wheaton, are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So I will now ask each member of council to verbally indicate the name of the nominee of their choice, and we will go in alphabetical order for voting purposes. Mayor Accioni.
Figured it started with me. Counselor Lauder.
Councillor Lauder. Councillor Leatherbarrow. Councillor Wheaton. Councillor Schadenberg
Councillor Lauder,
and Councillor Tate.
Counselor Lauder.
Councillor Wheaton
That would be Wheaton.
and Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Councillor Wheaton.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder has received the majority of votes cast and is hereby appointed as the acting mayor for the term of November 17th, 2022 through to January 11th, 2024. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for you both being willing to step in if required in my absence. So I do appreciate that very much. Now I guess I'm going to pass it over to you again. To the clerk.
Thank you again, Your Worship. So we'll now proceed with the election of the alternate member to the upper tier council. So again, each member of council is entitled to one vote. CAO David Creary will draw the name from a ballot box in the event of a tie. So I will now accept nominations in writing, duly moved and seconded for the position of the alternate member of the upper tier council. Are there any further nominations? None. So the following councillors have been nominated: Councillor Lauder and Councillor Leatherbarrow. Councillor Lauder, are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And Councillor Leatherbarrow, are you willing to accept the nomination?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. So again, I'll now ask each councillor to verbally indicate the name of their nominee or the nominee of their choice. And again, we will go in alphabetical order. Mayor Accioni.
I am going to go with Counselor Lauder on that one. Sorry.
And Councillor Lauder.
Councillor Lauder.
Councillor Leatherbarrow.
Councillor Leatherbarrow.
Councillor Schadenberg.
Councillor Lauder,
Councillor Tate.
Counselor Lauder.
Councillor Wheaton
Counselor Leatherbarrow.
and Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Councillor Leatherbarrow.
So Councillor Lauder has received the majority of votes cast and is hereby appointed as the alternate member of the Oxford County Council until November 14th of 2026. Thank you.
Again, thank you both so much for willing to step in. Okay, moving along to Councillor Board appointments for 2022 to 2026. I'm going to call upon Councillor Lauder for that, please.
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council be appointed to the various boards as follows. And that'll be seconded by Councillor Tate. The Art Gallery Board, Councillor Lauder, the Woodstock Board of Management Downtown Improvement Area, Councillor Leatherborough, the Woodstock Hydro Legacy Fund Committee, Mayor Accioni, Councillor Lauder and Councillor Tate. The Police Services Board, Mayor Accioni and Councillor Lauder. Woodstock Public Library Board, Councillor Tate, Councillor Leatherborough and Councillor Wheaton. Southgate Center Board of Directors, Councillor Lauder. The Woodstock Hospital Trust, Councillor Lauder. And further, that Woodstock City Council recommend that Oxford County Council appoint Councillor Schadenberg to be the Woodstock representative on the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor? Carries, none opposed. Thanks, everyone. Okay, from the Chief Administrative Officer, looking for someone to motion for the OLG Sportsbook agreements. Councillor Tate. Seconded by Councillor Leatherborough. Thank you.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council authorize the mayor and the clerk to enter into a revised municipal contribution agreement with OLG as outlined in the report.
And I have asked the CAO to speak to this for the public's sake.
Yes. Thank you, your worship. The OLG has advised the city that it is preparing its service providers to begin introducing sport books at its Ontario casinos. Sport books, I guess, is a new form of gaming that they're introducing into casinos involving sports betting. And they're indicating that there has been no decision made yet as to whether or not Woodstock Gateway Casino will be the recipient of sportsbook gaming, but nevertheless, they are working to revise the municipal contribution agreements in the event that they do move forward with introducing this. They are proposing 4% revenue sharing of all sportsbook gaming under this proposal.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. None opposed. Thank you. Moving along, nothing from Human Resources or Fire Services or Public Works tonight or Information Technology. Special Committee and Advisory Task Force reports, but we do have a notice of motion. I'm going to call upon Councillor Leatherborough to read this one. Thank you.
Thank you, your worship. Whereas the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on October 21st, 2021, council directed staff to remove the benches and picnic tables in the downtown area until further notice. And whereas to reinstate benches and picnic tables ensures Woodstock's downtown core be both accessible and inclusive to all members of our community. Now therefore be it resolved that Woodstock City Council direct staff to reinstate all such benches in Museum Square immediately and all remaining benches and picnic tables in the downtown area in the spring of 2023 following final snow removal activities.
Thank you. Now, I do want to make note of this motion will be read into the minutes, but not seconded or debated at this meeting. The motion will be considered under new business at the December 15th, 2022 regular council meeting. Okay, so thank you. No new business. Draft bylaws. Wow, we are at the end. Wow, we did pretty good tonight, everybody. Okay, questions and addresses by members of council, and we are going to start with Councillor Pate.
I just want to congratulate once again my favorite relative, and I'm allowed to say that, Damian Warner. He was inducted into the Canada's Walk of Fame the other day. Among his accomplishments was he had set the record for the decathlon at the Olympics, and he had 2 single individual awards with it. But the reason I bring this up, I'm trying to bring this up. It won't let me. He's probably one of the nicest people you could ever meet, very humble. And in his speech, he thanked all those people that helped him, his coaches. And he made the comment about all that they give up in their family to help him. So I thought that was very fitting for him. And the other reason I bring it up, somebody commented maybe Woodstock should have a Hall of Fame sometime. We do have our Sports Wall of Fame, but we have some people, just for instance, David Naylor, who was the president of the University of Toronto, Bill Tatham, Len Reeves, Harvey Hunt, just a few to name, some from Woodstock that made very big contributions to the city. And I think the history is very important. So at some time, not to put more work on staff, but maybe we could look into it and start adding people from Woodstock that made a difference.
Thank you. Councillor Schattenberg.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I guess I got 4 things to mention. Woodstock District Developmental Services has begun their silent online auction for this year. It runs until November 24th. And you Leafs tickets and Raptors tickets. That's something Liz Van Meer would be interested in, would be the Raptors tickets. Oh, she got all bid already, she mentioned. Have to go back online and bid again. At home catering, dinners, and so many other things on the WDDS, a great local charity, of course, to support. Wearing purple today for 2 reasons. One being that the Dasso Wrapped in Courage flag raising ceremony is on Tuesday at noontime. That's November 24th. So be sure to plan on going out for that. It must be Thursday, November 24th. Sorry about that. I'm gonna check that quickly. Maybe Liz can while I'm talking about it. But that's at the Oxford County Administration Building at 12 noon on that day. The reason I mentioned purple as well as the passing of well-known Woodstock doctor, Dr. Peter Fowler. Of course, he got very well known as at the Western Mustangs, but the Fowler Kennedy Sports Medicine Clinic. He passed away yesterday. He was 84 years old. And he founded the Fowler Kennedy Sports Medicine Clinic back in 1974, very well known worldwide as an orthopedic surgeon. One of the things about his obit that they mentioned is that some of his clients or some of his patients would be someone like Eric Lindros, a professional hockey player. But the other thing they called it was weekend warriors. So people who got sports injuries just by competing in their own sports or going skiing or whatever. He was a medalist at the Pan Am Games in 1959 in Chicago in swimming. So he's been inducted in the Woodstock Sports Wall of Fame twice, both as an athlete and for a lifetime achievement, named to the Order of Canada in 2018 as well. So very profound career for Dr. Peter Fowler, who passed away yesterday in London, but of course he's grew up in Woodstock. Another one I want to mention is Phil Hinchley. He died on Monday at the age of 74. Another member of the Woodstock Sports Wall of Fame. Phil Hinchley's background was in minor soccer in Woodstock, very key to building at the what's now the Cowan Sportsplex originally. And Dwayne Griffith, who would have been significant in that area too, said that Phil Hinchley was a valued member of our community. His contribution to the soccer community and the Cowan Park Board of Directors were fantastic. So we keep in our memory Peter Fowler and Phil Hinchley. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Thank you. Just kind of going along with what Mark mentioned about International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. That's Friday, November 25th. But our friends at Oxford Dart are holding a couple of events. One was tonight. Unfortunately, those of us in the room tonight couldn't attend for obvious reasons, but they had an evening with Jackson Katz, his PhD on sports, pop culture, and creating male allies for gendered equity. Tomorrow morning, bright and early at 7 a.m., we'll be down at Unifor Hall joining them. I'm sure there's quite a few of us that will be there for the men's leadership in fostering gender equity. So looking forward to that event and supporting Oxford Dart.
Thank you so much. Councillor Leatherborough.
So I think it's safe to say successful first meeting. My hands are still a little warm. And I have just some brief statements. Tomorrow, Friday, November 18th is the kickoff to the holidays with the City of Woodstock's lighting of Museum Square. As well as this weekend, Friday and Saturday, save the tax during Ding Dong, the Tax is Gone at participating downtown Woodstock BIA businesses. So as we begin the holiday season, please shop local, visit the downtown core and all the businesses that operate here. The more we support local, the more we support our neighbors.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. Yes, I'm looking forward tomorrow night to the lighting of the square, and at the Santa Claus house, there's hot chocolate, and I think there's probably cookies. And so it's always a great night for the children to come out, and it's just a great start to the winter season. And don't forget the Santa Claus parade is December the 4th at 2 p.m. So looking forward to all of this, and thank you.
Councillor Wheaton.
Thank you. The honor of going last is that everyone has covered the most exciting events that are coming up in the calendar in the next 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to attending, to be being a part of this within the community. I encourage other organizations that as you have events coming up, please reach out. Would be delighted to attend as our schedules permit. I would concur with Councillor Leatherborough that this was an enjoyable first evening. I appreciate the teamwork. Sorry, I have to get to see Liz. Councillor Wismer Van Meer. I appreciate the camaraderie and the teamwork around the table this evening in all of the work that we've had to do so far. So I appreciate that warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will certainly echo you for both going last now. There really isn't too much to say. So I actually thought I'd bring up, and I want to bring a couple of parts of my inauguration speech out that I had mentioned. Congratulations to all of my fellow council members. I mean, I'm really so proud to sit here with you to start our journey. Congratulations to all your campaign teams and all your volunteers. And not only that, but for everyone that ran. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of commitment to do this. So for you to be successful and you sitting here, I congratulate you. To Councillor Talbot and Councillor Petter, thank you so much for their service. There's two councillors that really did contribute a fair bit to the city. Obviously, Councillor Talbot was, I almost called her older than Councillor Petter, been here longer than Councillor Petter by 32 and a half years. So I really want to congratulate her, and because she really did a commitment between the city as well as city county. So she, thank you for everything she's done. I want Woodstock to be a place where all residents feel welcome, safe, and connected. We really, truly live in such an amazing city, and I'm proud to call this place home, as well as raise my kids in. We encourage everyone here in the city to get involved. Those that know me know I'm a strong believer in volunteerism. It's the core of the community. The people in this room cannot do it all. We need an entire community behind us. And I'm proud to say we do live in one of those types of communities. Okay. If you can't, for those that can't donate financially, of course, volunteers. The Kettle program right now is looking for a lot of volunteers. There's a lot of different programs right now that could use your help. So please reach out to one of them. Thank you to my family. I have to say a huge thank you to my wife, Sarah, my daughters, Caitlin and Madison, for them to be okay with me running again for mayor after 8 years of being a councillor. I just have to say thank you. You know, that's, and I'm not going to cry right now. That's why I had Councillor Wismer Van Meer go before me. But it means a lot. Thank you so much to the entire community. I am going to do the absolute best job I can. I encourage everybody to reach out to your council, to me as your mayor. I want to assist any way we can and continue to make Woodstock great. And I'm going to leave it there. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Counselor Wheaton, seconded by Counselor Schadenberg. All those in favor? We are now adjourned from our very first meeting, everybody. Congratulations. Thank you.